Hello, and welcome to another session on using Blender for video editing. Has this ever happened to you, where you've been working on your project, you've been doing some cuts, some edits, some transitions, and then all of a sudden you accidentally click and drag on something like this, and now all of a sudden you have an extra editor, and you don't know how to get rid of it, because then you clicked on this ridged thumb grip thing, so you click on it again and try and drag and try to bring it back, but no, now you have three editors. Well, today we're going to try and clear up everything so you won't have to worry and deal with those frustrations. In fact, you'll be plenty comfortable dealing with Blender and its interface. Before we get started, let's talk about terminology, because actually in my previous videos I used the wrong words for a number of things. Let's start by talking windows. So everything we see, this whole thing here that we see, this is the Blender window. We can actually have more than one, and we'll show you that next. When you click over here, you can see that what we have is a list of all these different things, and we typically go to video editing. This is called the screen layout, and it's just the configuration of the different areas that you can have. Within a single Blender window, you can have multiple areas. Like so right now, as you can see, I've got this one, and these three down here. But even this thing up here at the top, this menu, and this bit at the bottom, the timeline, these are all different areas. And you can, within an area, you can choose what editor you want to put in there. So here I've got the graph editor, this is video sequence editor, and so is this, and so is this. And the preview window itself is also the video sequence editor, just a different view of it. Within an editor, it can have multiple elements to it, hidden or not. For example, within the preview, like we saw before with when we want to turn on enable proxies, you have to go into the properties of it, and you can do that by going to the view menu to show that. This is called a region. And even this thing here, this header, is also something that we can choose to show or hide. And finally, the last thing is panel. I used the word panel before. I called this thing, I referred to it as the properties panel, but that's not the case. Panel is actually these little things that we can expand and close within the region. Okay, so terminology done. Let's get started. So let's say we wanted to have multiple windows, and why would you do that? Well, good reason is if you have multiple monitors, then you can have one Blender window in your secondary monitor, which is maybe just reserved for the preview, and then all of your work could be done in your primary screen, and you can use up all that valuable real estate. So how do you do that? There's two easy ways. One is just to create an exact copy of what you've got right now and as a new window, and then you can work on that. And another is just to take the specific piece of it. For example, the preview, you just want to see the preview in its own window. That's another way. Let's start with creating a copy of the whole window. You go to the window menu and you say duplicate window. And that's it. So now you can see at the bottom, I've got two different Blender windows. If I put these side by side, then you can see they are copies of each other. And if I play on one, you'll see the other one is also playing, because it is basically two views of the same project. Okay, so that's the first way. Let me stop that and close this one. So the second way is to go to the view menu of that specific editor that you want to see full screen, and you can say view duplicate area into new window, and there you go. So now I have a second window, which is just the preview, which is again the video sequence editor. So that's two ways for you right there, working with multiple windows. One additional thing about the windows is that you can take any one of these areas and maximize it. To do that, you can go to the view menu and say, where's the add option? Here we go, at the bottom, toggle maximize area. and there's a couple of short keys for that, but let's just show that first. So now, as you can see, it has taken up the entire window, and it has also added this button to say back to previous, which is an easy way to bring it back to the original screen layout. So there are shortcut keys. So one is Control up arrow. So let me just press that now. Control up arrow to maximize, and then again to bring it back. And the other one is to say Shift space. So Shift space, and then press again back to normal. And of course, I should point out that as with all the other keyboard shortcuts, it relies on where your mouse is pointing to control the action. So if you wanted the preview window to be maximized, you better make sure the mouse is in there and before you press that hotkey. If I were to instead have the mouse down here, then the video sequencer editor is the one that would get maximized. Okay, so that's that about Windows. Let's talk about areas now. So as we saw right down at the bottom here, now I have 3 areas because I created it by holding on to this ridged thumb grip looking thing. There's one up here, and then there's one on the bottom left. So bottom left, top right of every single area, you can find these things. Let's talk about creating new ones, because we've already covered that. To create it, all you do is you click with your left mouse button and drag across, and you can make one going sideways, or you can also go up and down. So if I take that same one, click and bring it down, I create a new one and split that region vertically. So whenever you do this, you are creating a second area, and it's going to have the same editor in it. Now let's talk about how do we get rid of these things. To get rid of them, you have 2 easy ways. So the first one is to do the same thing. You click and hold with your left mouse button, but then instead of pulling away from the border, you go towards the border. So I'm going to move my mouse up now, and you can see that what's happened now is Blender has kind of grayed out the top area, and then there's a little arrow that's pointing up. So that's saying that we're going to collapse that one. We're going to merge these two, and the content on the bottom is going to replace everything. Because they're both the same craft editor, then you don't notice the difference. But if I were to do it going this way, so this time I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to drag to the right. What's going to happen is the preview window is going to disappear, and it'll be replaced with just a larger graph editor. I'm going to switch that back now to the video sequence editor and over to here because I like seeing my preview. And that's one way to get rid of these areas. The other way, which actually I think is easier, is just to hover your mouse over in the border between 2 areas so that the cursor changes to something with arrows pointing in the 2 directions. Then what you can do is, if you wanted to just resize these, you can just use your left mouse button and drag in one way or the other way to resize. But to make one go away, instead you just click right on your right mouse button, and it presents you with these options: split area or join area. So split area is more or less what we've been doing so far. So instead we can go to join area, and again we'll see this arrow pointing one way or the other, and then one of the areas will get grayed out. You left click on that, and then it does the join, and you can repeat this as many times as necessary so that you're back to your original configuration or however you want it to look. So that's Windows covered and areas. Let's talk about regions. So within any editor, we have multiple elements there. Like up here, you can see here we've got this little plus sign. If you click on that, that reveals the properties region, which we can then, just like with areas, we can hover the mouse at the border, and then we can click with our left mouse button to resize. In this case, we can actually make it go away just by bringing our mouse all the way over to the right, and then it's gone, and then that plus sign is back. The same thing with these this menu bar thing, which I think is called the header. You can move your mouse, shift it so that we can see the double arrows heads, and then click with your left mouse button. You can bring it down to make it go away if you wanted to, have even more real estate. And then if you were to do that, then you can see that this plus sign just appeared, right? So if I bring that down, the plus sign appears. I click the plus sign, it appears again. Regarding these headers, you may have noticed that they don't always appear in the same spot. Specifically, when the properties editor, if we switch the graph editor to the properties editor, you'll see that the header has now jumped to the top. It's why, I don't know, but there's an easy way to bring it to the bottom if you wanted everything to be consistent. Just right click anywhere along the empty space of the header, and then choose the option flip to bottom, and then that brings it to the bottom. Conversely, if you wanted to bring everything to the top, it's the same thing. You can right click on the empty space and say flip to top, and then you have your header on the top if that's what you want. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to talk about today is being able to just rearrange the areas. So let's say, for example, let me just mock this up. I've got 3 different panes at the bottom here, and I wanted to swap the positions of them. I wanted to take this one and I want to bring it to the bottom left. You can do that. All you have to do is hold down on your control key, and then with your left mouse button, you go to that ridged thumb grip thing, click and drag, and then you can see the cursor has changed now, and just drag it to where you want it to swap, what you want to swap with. So I'm going to let go, and there you have it. Now they have swap places, and I can do that with anything. So as long as it's within the same window. So I can take this properties editor and I can bring it over here, and I can change my mind about this preview. Now I want it over here in the right side. And there you go. So that's it. That's working with windows, areas, regions. Hope that helps you, and you can play around with it, get comfortable, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.